Yeah, that was me breathing, y'all. How you doing? Listen, the name of today's show is Girl Breathe, the connection between your mind and your body. I hear a lot of noise going on in the background there. Hey, everybody, it's your girl, Dia Direct. Welcome to the Superpower Podcast. And today we're talking about Girl Breathe, the connection between your mind and your body. Somebody is typing and making a whole lot of noise over there. So if you're typing right now, I need you to stop because it's all in my ear. All right. So listen, y'all, here's the thing. We're all going through during COVID-19. I know that a lot of us are feeling anxiety. And if you find yourself like just literally taking shorter breaths or feeling uncomfortable, today I want to talk to you about that connection, because literally how we breathe, how we move, what we're thinking, the things that are causing anxiety inside of our minds can have a direct impact on our actual body. It can literally have an impact on us getting disease or getting sick. And so today, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about why it's important to not only breathe, but to really monitor your mind, right? To really recalibrate your whole system so that we can be healthier. So first joining us today is therapist Alisha Woodall. She is a psychotherapist, and she's here to talk to us about how the mind is impacted. And then joining us along with her is also Dr. Dawda, who is a functional health physician, and she will also be talking to us about that connection. Welcome, ladies, to the Superpower Podcast. So happy to have you here today.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, thank you, Dia. Thank you for having us today.
So listen, Alisha, is it just me or that, I'm having anxiety? I feel like, I'm not able to catch my breath in the same way. My mind is racing all the time. It's not as easy to concentrate. Is that normal during these times? In your practice, what are you seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. So anxiety is literally just this flying here. The thought, the overthinking of things that we can't control and we don't have any awareness of what's going to happen. And so the fact that we are in this position where we don't really know what's happening, so many of our norms have changed. There's a high increase in anxiety just for the simple fact that we don't know what's happening. We don't know what tomorrow holds. Will there be school in September or not? Things like that we normally have a grasp on no longer are normalized. And so it increases anxiety and thoughts of the future that we can't control. So that's actually normal to be feeling and having some anxious thoughts.
So talk to me a little bit more about what it is you do in your practice and what you're seeing people for these days.
So my practice has always been about heightened self-awareness. And what heightened self-awareness does is gives you a better ability to operate because you're fully aware of how you operate and what drives your behaviors. In talking about what you're saying, like the mind, the body, and the soul intertwine, when we understand that and we understand how the mind impacts our behavior, then we're better able to modify and to control our behaviors. And so my practice is all about helping you understand self better, heighten self-awareness, because the more you know about yourself, the more capable you are of making whatever changes or modifications that you desire. In this day and time, with so much anxiety, what we're really focusing on is what are the things that we have control over versus what are the things that we do not. Separating those and then working within the means of those that we can control and have some sense of understanding around.
Wow. Yeah, it's so important. Heightened awareness is so important because the reason why I'm aware of that my breathing has changed is because I am self-aware. And so that's something for us to kind of think about during these times. What are you feeling different in terms of how you're feeling about yourself and really doing a check around that kind of stuff. Speaking of checkups, Dr. Dawda, talk to me a little bit more about what functional medicine is and what you're doing in your practice and how that's playing out during these COVID streets.
Well, functional medicine, and I do both functional and integrative medicine. It's more of a holistic view to healthcare. It takes into consideration like mind, body, spirit, and even social factors while including the science. And so for me, keeping in mind that all things are interconnected, I spend a lot of time like investigating the root cause of disease and how the body becomes imbalanced. So by looking at the root causes and the chronic issues of it, it helps kind of help me to figure out the physiological damage that it's causing. And in this case, when there are people who are suffering from COVID-19 and having anxiety from it, to me, it means bringing the body back in balance and helping them to understand that there is a chemical imbalance that's causing that. So we're incorporating both conventional and alternative medicine to help them do that.
So ladies, this is for both of you. I talked a little bit about there being a connection between the mind and the body and how that all plays out. But from your respective perspectives, can you, is that true? Is it true that what you think, how you feel, actually has a direct impact on what is happening with your physical health?
Yeah, absolutely. I know the doctor here can speak to more of the physical aspects of that, but we know for sure that what we think and how we feel absolutely dictates our behavior. It's almost like a chain event. My thoughts lead to my feelings lead to my thoughts lead to my feelings, and my feelings lead to my behavior. Sorry. But we know that's a direct case. And so then for that to have a physical response from different medical ailments or different things that we notice within ourselves, not being able to sleep, increased appetite, those are physical things, even though they're not necessarily physical representations of the body. But we know that those things are triggered by how we feel and what we think.
Dawda?
Yeah, so in regards to like in my practice with looking at functional medicine and thinking about the mind and mental health, I look at the physiology of it. And so I know there's a link between inflammation and chronic illnesses like autoimmune disorders, asthma, thyroid disorders, and those are all inflammatory conditions. And so with that, inflammation does affect the brain. And so it can cause issues like depression, bipolar disorder, anxiety, and it's all related to mental health. So with me, I'm looking at things like gut-brain connection. There's a huge connection between that. The gut actually has its own nervous system. And so if that's dysfunctional for any reason, it does not allow for those neurotransmitters to transmit those messages to the brain, and then you start to malfunction. And there's something that's called leaky gut. That's something I definitely look into to see if we can, help clear the gut out of toxins and bacteria, and that actually can get into the bloodstream that cause you to be more toxic, and it starts to affect the mental health.
I want to go a little deeper with both of those, but since we're on leaky gut, let's just stay there for a second, because the toxins in your body, Alisha, how does that impact your brain function?
Well, that would be more of a doctor question, but obviously we know that when the mind and the body isn't functioning well, neither can the mind. So if we're not getting adequate sleep, if we're not drinking adequate amounts of water, your brain isn't going to function. I like to use the analogy of a car and keeping your car serviced, right? We have to keep oil in our car and keep it maintenance for it to run properly. You can have a beautiful car, but if you're not doing the maintenance on that vehicle, then that car is going to turn to trash. And so the same thing is true with the things that we put into our body, how we treat our body, adequate, sleep, adequate exercise. When those things aren't up to par, it's going to have a natural ripple effect, mentality from a mental perspective as well as from a physical perspective. Outcomes being those that I'm sure the doctor can speak on. But when those things aren't happening, and those things cannot happen due to certain mental illnesses, right? So if I'm very depressed, I can be oversleeping or not sleeping at all. High anxiety, all of these things can cause changes in our functionality that ultimately lead to physical ailments and problems with our body.
Dawda, you want to speak on that?
Sure. And so kind of piggybacking on what Alisha was saying, that I tell my clients something very similar, is that you have to get your oil changed. So if you're taking your cars to get it fixed every 3 to 4 months, you should be doing the same thing with your body, because it's a system. So doing some type of detox essentially helps. So when you think about the physiology, what's happening when it comes to leaky gut, you're not getting the proper signals. So your gut has to communicate with the brain. There's a neurotransmitter called serotonin, and serotonin, I call it the happy hormone, and it can make you feel more optimistic. And it's actually about 90% of serotonin is actually produced in the gut. And so if the gut is off balance, there's some type of dysfunction, there's inflammation, there's a toxic buildup. then you might lose that proper signaling to the brain and become more neurotoxin, and you have a depletion in serotonin. And this is how people end up with depression and anxiety. There's other factors too, like biotoxins, things that you're exposed to, whether it's like the water you drink, the clothes you wear, the foods that you eat. It can have an adverse effect on your mental health as well.
Alisha, do you agree with that?
It's high. So when people come in for mental health and for their therapy, one of the things I ask them, was the last time you had a physical? Because you have to be able to understand those things are intertwined. And I think when we start looking at ourselves as a whole person, not just whether or not I'm mentally healthy versus physically healthy, but am I healthy in all of these areas, from a mental perspective, physical, and spiritual? When we start thinking of ourselves as whole person and taking care of ourselves as whole person, I think then we're at a better advantage. A lot of times we're very open about our physical health. Going to the gym, we'll promote that online. I'm at the gym, look at me in my sweatpants. But then when it comes to mental health, we don't want to talk about that. We don't want to discuss the things that we're doing to take care of ourselves and to keep us maintained the same way we will for our physical body. We'll tell people what we're doing for our physical body to make it look good and keep it tight, but we don't really want to talk about the things that help us stay mentally healthy. So I absolutely agree. There's a direct tie there. And once we start thinking of it in that perspective, it'll be easier to make the adjustments that we need to make.
It's really fascinating, and we're live on both Facebook and YouTube now. And so, if you have questions that you want to ask these experts who are literally here to help you, this is your moment. This is your time. A lot of people, for various reasons, either don't have health care, are afraid to go to the doctor, although we'll talk a little bit more about telehealth, or just haven't engaged yet in therapy. And so this is an opportunity for you to both learn about, how to take care of yourself better, but to also ask direct questions. And with that in mind, I know Dr. Dawda, you and I have talked about this in some detail. But Alisha, I want to get your perspective. Do you see there's a trend between certain traumas or mental health issues that are directly correlated to physical issues? In other words, if a person has, let's say, had trauma of being molested or, been grieving for a significant amount of time, or, they're depressed, are there certain illnesses that you've been able to see are linked to, certain physical illnesses are linked to the trauma that people are experiencing?
Yeah, well, yes. And I think it goes back to my original comment of how they're all intertwined. So I think any of those traumas absolutely can have a direct link to having some mental illness. For example, a person's had a bad car accident. Now, all of a sudden, their functionality or their way of movement has changed. That can cause, or can at least instigate some issues with depression or self-esteem issues, things that lead to mental illnesses deeper than just that surface issue. But there's always a connection there. Every single time there's a connection. If someone gets physically ill, they're going to have a mental response to that, right? Because there's a direct connection. So anytime, there is no real singular issue that doesn't impact both. If I have a physical ailment, I'm going to have a mental response. Mental illness is not always this psychosis or this extreme end of the spectrum that we hear about. It's just a difference or change in your mental functioning, right? And so anything that we go through, any trauma, big or small, can have an impact on our mentality and the way that we perceive that situation happening. And again, it goes back to making sure there's a tie between the two. So to answer your question in sum, yes, there's always a tie. It's very rare. I don't know an instance where they can't come together. If something affects me physically, it's going to affect me mentally.
And right now, because, people are losing their jobs, people are losing family members. I mean, COVID-19 is literally impacting every area of our lives. There's a lot of unknown factors. And so it causes a lot of stress. What can you tell us about how stress has been impacting people right now?
It's at an all-time high, and people are more aware of it. They're noticing it more now than they have before. And I think this time has caused a greater conversation about mental health. So it sparks people to be more aware of the fact that they may be experiencing some stress levels. The other thing, too, is that taking away some of our social activities and our different things that people were doing to socialize, when we remove those things, we remove distractions. Now, all of a sudden, those stresses that we had before are compounded with the fact that I don't have my normal distractions. Even a commute into the job was somewhat of a distraction if you were able to have that 40 minutes of driving to just listen to music, listen to your book on tape or whatever. When that's been removed, but you still have this original stressors plus new stressors and now I have no more ways to distract myself from having to address it. So that's what we're noticing. It's not that these things are new or that the things just all of a sudden happen. It's that now we're more aware of them because we have more time and opportunity to think about them.
And when we think about stress, Dr. Dawda, does that have any kind of impact at all on inflammation in our bodies?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, inflammation is like the root cause, I say, of pretty much all diseases, if not, most of them. So what happens is when your body's under a significant amount of stress, what happens, your adrenal glands, they're your stress glands, they put out stress hormones. And two of the main common ones is adrenaline and cortisol. Those two in itself create inflammation because they send out these inflammatory responders. And in a sense, what happens is you experience this fight or flight. I don't know if you've heard of that before, but it's a fight or flight type of situation to where your sympathetic and parasympathetic system will kick in. It kind of goes haywire, and it makes it more difficult for you to, one, think logically, and you have things like foggy thinking and really not really sure what's going on. But there's a chemical imbalance because your brain is not getting the actual neurotransmitters or the signal that it needs to focus and then also to function at its normal levels. And the other thing is that it actually decreases your immune system. So when your immune system is down, it makes you more prone to getting something like COVID-19.
Why is that?
Well, with the correlation between the inflammation and then also when the immune system is down, so your body is more focused on protecting like those inner core organs like your stomach, your intestines and things like that, your heart. You want to make sure that your body is designed to where if there's any issues, all the blood is going to rush to the inner core because that's the vital organs that you need to be able to survive. And so it's trying to keep everything up to par then. Otherwise, when your immune system starts to go down, you just can't fight it off. There's a virus becomes more overload, and we're seeing a lot of different people that have COVID-19, and inflammation has been a big factor in how their survival rate is.
Well, folks, I want you to stay tuned because we're not just going to talk about what the problems are. Make sure you just continue to watch because we're going to also get into some of the solutions. There's so much to learn. The body is so fascinating, and then on top of all these things that are happening to us mentally and emotionally and physically, there's also so much to learn and discover for the layperson. And one of those things is that I discovered that I thought was a thing, but I didn't know that scientifically it actually was a thing. And it's broken heart syndrome. We've been hearing more and more about people who are in just deep grief because they've lost loved ones suddenly, multiple loved ones, and things of that nature. And so can you explain what broken heart syndrome is? Is it a real thing? And how is it actually impacting those loved ones who are grieving?
Well, I'll answer that. So with the broken heart syndrome, I mean, heart has always been a mystery anyway. So when it comes to broken heart syndrome, it's actually referred to something called stress-induced cardiomyopathy. And cardiomyopathy is like enlargement of the heart. Sometimes you may hear it as Takotsubo cardiomyopathy. This term originates from a pot that was actually in Japan. They use this pot to capture an octopus, and it actually forms a shape where the bottom of it becomes like a balloon and the top part of it becomes like a neck. So it kind of squeezes down. So what happens when you have some type of stress-induced situation in your life or a life-changing event, all these stress hormones would be emitted, particularly like adrenaline, and it affects the heart. It makes it more difficult for the heart muscles to contract. So it's more relaxed and it doesn't allow for it to pump like it needs to. So we have a lot of people that actually experience this and they feel like they're having a heart attack. So from a physiological standpoint, you are being affected, even in things that are hurting your mental health.
Alisha, you have any perspective on this from a mental health perspective? Is it a real thing? Can people die of broken heart?
Well, clearly from what she just described, it's so fascinating hearing the physical side from that. I do know that the things that come along with broken heart syndrome, right? The sadness, the depression, the changes in behavior, the changes in lifestyle, things that we do with ourselves, those things can, what's the word I'm looking for? I just lost my train of thought. Those things can cause the kind of mental defects that ultimately cause the physical aspects that we're taught that she was just discussing. But yeah, sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, it is. It's very fascinating. And, here's the thing. a lot of people are going through things, which is why I like to have these conversations. And it's also really helpful to make the connection, between the mind and the body and the spirit. We can't forget that part. And as we were going through, as I was really thinking about what is it that I can offer, what can I do? Because there's so many problems. And so the thing about problems is they create opportunities for solutions. And so normally around this time of year, I'll be getting ready for my self-care summit, the Super Self-Care Power Summit that we do once or twice a year. And as I began to talk to different women all over the country, some women who were downtrodden, some women who were just in transition, right? Women who life was changing drastically. And so it might be that you're unemployed. It might be that you're underemployed. It might be that you have resources, but you need to prioritize your resources because we're in uncertain times. But because the woman is often the person who cares for her inner circle emotionally, and we're, as Black women, we've been carrying this cape of being super women, right? We're not always comfortable showing our vulnerability. We're not always comfortable asking for help because we like to be the helper. We like to help others. And so it caused me to raise the question, well, who's saving Superwoman? And as a result of that, I created a campaign for women who are watching right now, who might be in transition for one reason or another. Life has happened, right? And you need help, but you don't know how to get it. You don't know where to go. You may not have the resources right now. And so I wanted to be a solution during this time. And so we created a campaign that started in July, which is Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. And at least the first part of the campaign will last until September, which is Self-Care Awareness Month, where people can literally donate to help us help other women like themselves who are in transition, who are stuck in a place, in a rut, and they need that support to go to therapy. And so I want to share with you now what we're doing with the Who's Saving Superwoman campaign. This is an SOS. Saving Our Sisters. Hi, I'm Dia Direct, founder of the Super Self-Care Project. For too long, Black women in particular have been the superheroes of our communities. But who is saving Superwoman? Yes, strong women need to be saved too. That's why starting right now, while it's still Minority Mental Health Awareness Month, we have launched our first campaign where we're helping women who need it go to psychotherapy, to go and get that help and lift their load. We know, and studies have proven, that mental health impacts your overall health. And when a woman is not healthy, it impacts her entire family and community. We want to make a difference. Please log on to selfcare.org over at the Super Self-Care Project and donate today. That's www.superselfcare.org. Thank you so much. So there you have it. We are literally raising money to help women like you go to therapy. Or you may have a friend or aunt, somebody you know who really needs to go to therapy, and not having the money has been a barrier for them. And so we're working diligently to remove those barriers, okay? So please, if you're watching and you can, please donate. And, I'm using my resources with other therapists who are working with me, including Alisha, to provide these services so that you're able to talk to women of color who are professionals and who understand your plight in many ways, in more ways than one. So, Alisha, did you want to add anything to that? I want to thank you for being one of the therapists, one of the many therapists who have agreed to be a part of this campaign.
I just think it's an awesome campaign. I think it was a great idea that you had, and so grateful for people like you who have these innovative ideas and ways to help people get in to have therapy. Therapy is one of those things that a lot of people don't think that they need if they're successfully and gainfully employed, right? They're able to go to work and do their thing and they're functioning, they look great at happy hour. But it really is an advantage to everyone. I ask people all the time, when was the last time you sat and talked about yourself and discovered things about yourself for a full hour without the other person saying, well, me too, and telling their version of the story? It's just something we don't typically have. And until you've experienced it and found a good therapist, like when you find the right one, like everyone isn't the right one for you, so don't let the wrong one deter you. When you find the right one, you have found a piece of gold. And so to find that connect and then just start building, learning about self. So I just applaud you and thank you for letting me be a part of it. But it's a great idea. And I hope people contribute.
Yeah, I do too. And listen, here's the thing. I love my girlfriends. But your girlfriends aren't always the solution because they got opinions, and you need somebody who actually has some skill. And sometimes you just need a safe place. And what I find too about therapy is when you hear yourself say things out loud in a safe environment, a lot of times you can figure things out as well, but you need the right atmosphere to be set, and you need guided conversations that kind of help you to go deeper and really to examine things further. So it's just like a woosah. It's a chance to do what we're doing today in the title of this conversation. Girl, breathe.
Yeah.
Give yourself the gift of a break. Give yourself the gift of not having to be the person who always has the answers. We need people who mentor us. We need to be mentors and be a part of the solution for others. But then we also need people who can meet us right where we are. And so you need the balance. Nobody needs to be the chief all the time. Nobody needs to be the student all the time. We need that balance, that fuel in our lives. And so this is one of those ways to do that. And so speaking of breathing, Dawda, Dr. Dawda, can you talk to us about some natural remedies? Because I also, I don't want to just talk about the problems. I want to talk about solutions. Can you talk to us about some natural everyday things that we can do to minimize stress, to minimize inflammation in our bodies, in our minds, in our spirits?
Yeah, so Diaz, it's what you talk about all the time, self-care, just making sure you keep things balanced. One of the first things I always recommend is exercise, getting enough exercise and having a routine with that. And what I talked about earlier is optimizing the gut. They're so huge, and I can't emphasize that anymore because, like I said, that gut brain connection, if your gut is in balance, your brain is going to be in balance, and it's least likely for you to develop some type of mental health issues. So there's a linkage between like your digestion, your mood, your health, and the way you think. So starting something like a detox program, I recommend my clients that I see do a detox every 3 to 4 months. It goes back to that analogy, just keeping your system clean and getting the oil change. You want to make sure you get rid of the bad stuff so you can feed your body with the good essential nutrients, and making sure you eat healthy. Eat foods like fruits and vegetables is going to help boost your immune system. Like you said, managing your stress. You can do things like essential oils. Lavender is good. Chamomile that helps relax the nervous system. And then just deep breathing, like we've been doing. You can do yoga. I do meditation on the world. And then diaphragmatic breathing. That's one of the best things you can do because it calms and it relaxes you. It actually decreases those stress hormones. And it helps with better digestion, gives you energy, and removes all those unwanted toxins that you have in your body.
I want to talk about toxins just a little bit. And Alisha, if you have something you want to add, please do. But I want to talk about toxins because I went and got a massage for my birthday. And obviously it's been a very long time considering that, we've been social distancing. And I know, after you have a massage, they say drink a lot of water, there are toxins coming out of your body. And I was so tired. I was just exhausted. Plus, I went to the dry sauna and then also the wet sauna. And so I know a lot of those toxins were coming out of my body. And to the point where I feel like I almost got sick. I thought it was going to take me out for a second. I thought I had the virus. Can you talk about why that happens?
Well, you're basically getting down to the lymphatic system. And so when your body's built up with those toxins, you have to think you may have some things like stimulants in your system. If you drink anything like coffee or anything that has caffeine in it, when you start to detoxify the body, you come off of that high. And your body has to essentially replenish itself. And so the immune system is actually starting to kick in. So eventually, most of the time, you'll have like this decrease in energy. And then typically you'll have a reburst of energy, but you have to refuel the system of those toxins that you have, like I said, getting rid of the bad stuff and replacing it with the good stuff as well. So that's why they always tell you to drink lots of fluids and water to make sure you can properly continuously detoxify, because it's not just the one time you get the massage, it has to filter through the lymphatic system as well. So replacing it with good things like fruits and vegetables and getting your energy levels back up. So that's why that happens. It is a chemical response when you get massages.
Mm. Alisha, did you want to add anything in terms of, natural things that we can do to not only help our overall wellness, but what are some things that we could do to stimulate our brain? Because our brains are on overload right now. And, a lot of people don't feel as alert. It's harder to focus. It's harder to concentrate. Can you talk about that a little bit, and maybe some things we can do to stimulate our brain?
Sure. There's some simple things that we all can do, and just I'm sure Dawda would agree, would help us physically as well as mentally. And they're very simple. Sleep being the most important. You'd be surprised how many people I meet that have poor sleep habits, 3, 4, 5 hours a night, and they don't realize how that's impacting their brain functionality the next morning and their stress level, their maintenance of stress, because their brain isn't functioning well. So there's sleep, there's water, and there's vitamin D, which is getting some sun, getting outside. These are 3 things that anyone can do no matter what's going on within their lives. They can try to get better sleep. If sleep is a problem, there's some melatonin. There are teas that help kind of coax you into a good night's sleep. There are things that you can do if you're having trouble falling asleep. But the important thing is that you get enough sleep, or at least attempt to get enough rest at night. So that sleep, the water intake is not just a little bit of water, but all day long. I drink water all day long because there's a noticeable difference on days when I don't.
But all water is not equal now, is it?
All water is not equal, no. But water in general, for those that aren't drinking water, I'll just start somewhere, get you some water. But you're right. Like, are you talking about essential water and different waters that have different, like alkaline waters? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And once I love all kinds of water, but water. You would be surprised too how much people don't drink water. People don't like water, which I find fascinating because I think water is delicious. It's just, so water, sleep, and sun. Those 3 things alone can help you out. And also, I saw sometimes people that deal with depression, that cashews can be really healthy and can be helpful if you don't want to do the antidepressants. I'd love for the doctor to speak on that. I keep calling you the doctor versus Dawda. If she could speak on some of these different foods that I've been telling people to try, that I've, from different journals have said they help you with depression or anxiety. I know cashews is one. Almonds and salmon are also foods that, because of their amino acids, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the reason they can help you with some of these other effects that normally you use medication for.
Mm-hmm. And I agree. I do agree with you on that, Alisha. And so what I typically tell my clients, because they do ask about the foods, but I say you want to look at foods and look at what the nutritional values are in them. So especially during this time, their immune systems may be down. You want to look for foods, like you said, with the omega-3, that's a good anti-inflammatory, and it helps boost up the immune system. There's other things that you can do for the immune system, like taking foods in that have zinc in it, or you may just take a supplement with zinc, because it actually helps increase like your white blood cells and fight off infection. And vitamin C, we've been hearing a lot of that since COVID-19's hit. Take vitamin C. It's a natural antioxidant. It helps fight off infection. Another one that you hear a lot about is elderberry. Eating elderberries, that would help. It has vitamin A, B, C, and it also has something called cytokines. So these are like signaling molecules that help regulate the immune system. What I do a little bit of my practice, I do IV vitamin infusions. And I know Dia, you've been there before, and those help give you energy and you get the nutrients at 100% absorption. So it's one of the best things that you can do. So as far as the foods, I say research and understand what's in the foods. If it doesn't have a nutritional value in it, then you probably should stay away from it.
Dawda, did you also want to say anything about water?
Well, when it comes to water, I know you mentioned about, there's different types of water. I get to the point where some of my clients, they're like, okay, I don't know which foods to eat. I don't know which water to drink. I got to a point, I'm like, okay, just sit in a bubble all day and just drink water. And they're like, well, what type of water? So I'm like, well,
It's overwhelming.
right, exactly. And so the thing about that with like alkaline water, what we're thinking about is the body being more acidic. And there's something called your acid-base imbalance. And when the body's more acidic, it actually leaves more room for infection and disease, things like cancer. They can settle in a more acidic state. So what we try to do is get the body more alkaline. That goes towards doing more plant-based type diet, fruits, vegetables, and drinking the alkaline water to get your body to more alkaline, because disease and infection can't stay in an alkaline environment. So,
So how do you know if your body is alkaline?
well, that's a lot of what I do in my office. We actually will test you. You can, if you want, you can go to the store and do some, urine tests, but I recommend following with your healthcare provider. They actually can do blood tests. They can do urine tests to see if you're more acidic. And it goes back a lot to things like people have chronic diseases like type 2 diabetes, metabolic acidosis. That's a lot of what that is. So making sure you follow with your healthcare provider, getting regular checkups, and especially during this time, to see where your body and your chemical balance is. And that would be my best recommendation.
Oh yes. Oh wow. So much to learn. I know I certainly, wonder like how much of these alkaline waters is marketed, or is it really helping? Because obviously it's marked up. You want to get alkaline. You want your body to be alkaline. And, not trying to get anybody to endorse a certain product. I'm just saying it's the dilemma that we have in trying to figure these things out. And so as we come to a close, are there any myths that are out there right now around COVID-19 or mental health or physical health that we should know? Because, we don't have a vaccine, but can you take some of these things that these vitamins, to be preventative, things that we can do to boost our immune system? Is there anything we should be doing, anything more we should be doing other than what's been said, to be preventative around COVID-19 during these times, or to prevent stress around it even?
Well, like you said, there's no proven, recommendations right now to show that it's actually going to prevent COVID-19, but there are studies that suggest that, vitamin C is definitely a natural antioxidant that helps fend off things like viruses. And if this is a true virus, then taking vitamin C would be good. Zinc has been linked to helping with treatment with COVID-19. Same thing with vitamin D. Vitamin D is a natural anti-inflammatory. And it goes back to my original statement when we started, talking about the inflammation. That will help keep the inflammation down. And so like Alisha said, if you're going outside, getting the sunlight, taking your vitamin D, you're going to naturally help replenish and replace those things that you may be losing and help decrease your inflammation. And as far as the myths, I would say, I'd say this: COVID is real. I know there's people that say, it's not real. I actually deal with patients that have had COVID-19. I've had family members that have had it and retested, and they have it again. They're healthcare workers. So, they're the front lines, and they're the ones that continue getting exposed. So I would say, protect yourself, take the precautions, and so that we can help yourself and help others around you.
That's really important, because I would be remiss if I didn't also mention that people who have been COVID-19 positive and recovered don't always recover fully, including mentally. Have you seen that? Have you seen that, the residual effects? And if so, what are some of the residual effects that you've seen? Because I've certainly heard people talk about, still not having mental clarity, not feeling 100% energized, and things of that nature.
Right. I mean, exactly what you just said. So right now I work more in a primary care setting, but what I do see, some of those lingering issues is like the extreme fatigue. They're having some unusual heart rhythms, even still having shortness of breath, foggy thinking, like you said, and some people still have like the persistent loss of taste and smell. I've seen lab values that are even different, and just we can't explain why they are. So that's why I said, making sure that you take the proper precautions, because we don't know what it's going to do to your body. Everyone's body is made up differently. We don't know why some people do well with it, and some people, just kind of pass by, and some people, they lose their life because of it. So we don't know. So understanding your health and your body is the best way and the best solution.
Alisha, have you had any clients who've had COVID-19 and they've had some kind of emotional impact as a result?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially during a pandemic where everyone is scared. So they're met with either, do I tell people that I've had it and then have to deal with the isolation and feeling as if I'm some kind of leper, or do I keep it to myself and struggle with expressing that part of my truth and experience? And so it becomes really difficult for those who have had it, and the people that know that they've had it, they do feel kind of ostracized, and they deal with the emotional stress of feeling as if they have something that no one wants to be around. And so there's that isolative factor that tends to always precede depression, right? And symptoms of depression. So it's definitely a difficult thing to deal with, because right now we don't know what to do, and people are very standoffish once you've mentioned that you've had it. So of the clients that I know that I have that have had it, they deal with that significantly, from family members as well. You know, no one wants to be around someone that has a disease that we know so little bit about. And so when they're open enough to say it and to tell people, they do deal with some level of ostracization.
And finish this sentence for me. If you're feeling this, you may need to see a therapist. Take me down that list, because I know there may be a number of things that people are feeling during this season, and they're trying to figure out if they do need to go and see somebody. What does that look and feel like?
Everybody. They make it real simple. Everybody needs to go. So there's this wide spectrum of how well we're doing. And there are those of us who are on the end of the spectrum where we feel functionally fine. And that person still needs a therapist. You can go to a therapist, you can get the ball rolling with someone. You don't have to be in a crisis to initiate therapy. It can be in the midst of just a season of, I want to know more about me and how I operate. Because that's really what therapy is. Therapy is not advice. Therapy is not some expert telling you how to live your life the best way. Therapy is guided introspection. It's like you said earlier, guided conversation. So everyone can benefit from it. But to your question, those who are feeling overwhelmed, feeling as if they have this foggy space where they don't know how to deal with certain things, they want some help with clarity, that person absolutely should seek out therapy. But ultimately, I think everyone should have a therapist on their Rolodex. If you have a dentist, a hairstylist, and anything else, specialist, you need to have a therapist on your list, because if you don't,
even therapists need therapists.
That's right.
That's one of the golden rules of graduate school, is that you need to get therapy yourself and maintain therapy. And we do, well, most of us do, because we recognize the value of having that person to be able to have that guided introspection. You don't have to go every week. You know, there are people that go weekly, there are people that go quarterly, there are people that just have their therapist there in times of need because they're so well adept at their own insight and introspection. But you have to at least get started and go there.
And that's a great segue. And so for those who do need some support in getting started, please go to selfcare.org, or you can inbox me. And if you need some help in going to see a therapist and we can help you, we certainly will. And for those who want to donate to help out in that regard, please do. So in closing, I know I said that before, but I really mean it now. Close us out with, not only how people can find you, but tell us, if there's anything else that you want us to know about what you do in your practice that people could benefit from. Tell us what that is, and also how folks can reach you. We'll start with you, Dawda.
Okay, so you actually can reach me right here on Facebook if you like. You send me an instant message. I'm on Dawda K. Pouncy, or we actually have with my clinic, Functional Health and Wellness. You can find it on Facebook. You can also go to our website. It's dfw-wellness.com. You can locate us on our Functional Health and Wellness also has a website. Our number is 972-668-7500, and I actually answer exact messages on Instagram as well at Dr. Dawda. So some of the things that we do implement in our primary care, we actually focus more on functional medicine. So we can do functional medical consultations for you, which involve like customized treatment plans. Like I mentioned earlier, we do IV vitamin infusions,
which I highly recommend.
Yes, IV vitamin infusions. And you can come in and get a nice relaxation massage when you get that done. And then hormone replacement therapy for those that may be experiencing pre or perimenopausal symptoms, adrenal dysfunction, or even thyroid problems. We work with people that have diabetes, autoimmune disorders, regenerative medicine, whatever your issues are. We don't turn anyone away. We like to, speak with you and see if there's anything we can do to help and guide you. And if we can't hear, we'll get you to someone that can.
Great. Alisha?
or you can find me on Instagram at Finding the Foundation. My website is findingthefoundation.com. That's findingthefoundation.com.
Great. And you offer both individual and do you also do any group therapy?
I do offer group therapy, and every so often I'll put out a special group that's happening. It'll be maybe a 6-week program or a 6-week group. So at this time I don't have any active groups, but I do individual and couples as well as family sessions. And all of this is virtual now. It's 100% virtual at this point. We're not doing any office visits at this moment, so probably not until 2021 maybe.
Right. So you see, folks, there's no limitation. There's no reason why you can't go and see a therapist or a doctor, because doctors and therapists are both seeing people virtually. So there you have that.
Yeah.
Listen, your girl D is direct. I am so pleased to provide this service. I hope and pray that not only you got something from it, but please share it with others. The repost will be available. The full conversation will also be on the podcast, which is Super Pow Her, right? You can get it on iTunes. You can get it on anywhere where you listen to podcasts, and you can also go to superpower.com. I hope and pray this has touched your life. It has met you right where you are. And until the next time, listen, remember that your circumstances don't determine your destiny, but your choices do. So make a good choice, one day at a time, moment by moment. Baby steps are still steps. God bless you.